How would you react if you found a stranger in your bed? Would your reaction be different if the stranger was a 71-year-old woman who stumbled into your home by accident? Would you resort to violence, dragging her out by her ankles and taunting her as she lay dying on the street? That is exactly what David Redfern did when he found a confused grandmother in his bed. Was his reaction an overreaction or justified defence? This is the heartbreaking story of Margaret Barnes. Hello, welcome to my true criminal abode. As ever, you are very, very welcome. If you are new here, my name is Marianne L, and I cover mostly true crime. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much to any new subscribers, any old subscribers. Whatever you are, there's no prejudice here. I love you all. So, today's case. This is a heartbreaking case, an absolutely, truly heartbreaking case about a 71-year-old lady who accidentally stumbles into the wrong home. And tragically, the homeowner ends up murdering her. Now, this case raises interesting questions about how far is too far. How far can somebody go to protect their own property? Now, in this case, this guy, he goes too far. He goes way too far. He is just over the limit of too farness. So let's get on with the absolutely tragic case of Margaret Barnes. So Margaret Barnes was a 71-year-old loving grandmother from Birmingham in the UK. Now, she left school at the age of 15, and she spent about 25 years of her life working as a packer at the Cadbury's factory in Birmingham. Now, if you're in the UK, you will most likely be very, very familiar with Cadbury's chocolate. The Cadbury's factory isn't actually that far away from me, and I have actually been to the factory. And what happens is that you can go and basically watch people working and making the chocolate. And it's somewhere that the kids like to go because they literally stuff their face on free chocolate all day, and the adults enjoy that too, obviously. But do you ever do that thing where you're reading something or you see something and you think, oh, I might have seen that person? And obviously I've been to the Cadbury's factory and I could have seen Margaret. I wouldn't know it. I wouldn't know it now, and I'll never know it. But it's just interesting, the little things about life that come up and you think, I might actually have seen Margaret when I was there. I might have seen her packing the chocolate. I don't know. Anyway, that's what she did. Now, at the time of this case, she was obviously retired. She was 71. And, you know, she enjoyed things like needlework, dancing. She liked traveling with her husband. They went to destinations like China and Cape Verde. And basically, Margaret just sounds like a really wonderful, lovely, sweet lady. She was a devoted mother to her two children, Simon and Natalie. She was a beloved grandmother. She had 4 grandchildren. She was a great grandmother. She had a great grandchild. She was cherished. She was loved and adored by her family and her friends. She had a wide circle of friends as well. She just sounds like a lovely, charming lady, which makes this case even more tragic. So in early July 2022, This is when Margaret visited the seaside town of Barmouth in Gwynedd, which is in North Wales, and she went there for a short holiday. Now, she had been married to her husband Raymond for 56 years. 56 years, that's quite an achievement. Now, even though they were married, she actually travelled to Wales alone because she was meeting with friends and acquaintances during her stay there. Now, on the evening of Sunday, July the 10th, 2022, Margaret had been out with her friends. You know, they'd had a great day, they enjoyed food, they enjoyed drinks, and basically, as the night wound down, she needed a place to stay. And this is where a friend arranged for her to spend the night at a place called Wave Crest B&B. Now, I'm not entirely sure why Margaret hadn't already booked somewhere before she went. There could be a number of reasons for that. Maybe she assumed she would be staying with a friend and then found out when she was there that she couldn't stay with a friend. I don't know. There could be a multitude of reasons. Either way, she had no idea where she was staying. So after this night out, she was walking down Marine Parade towards her B&B. Now, she'd been on this night out. She was slightly intoxicated, slightly disorientated. You know, she'd had a nice time and, you know, she was a little bit intoxicated. Factor in, she doesn't know where she's staying. And down Marine Parade, the places all look very, very similar. And she accidentally stumbles into the home of David Redfern. He was a 46-year-old IT worker. Now, this is about 10:10 at night. And Wavecrest B&B, where she was supposed to be staying, was actually a few doors down. So she wasn't far away from there, but she'd gone into the wrong place thinking that that's where she was meant to be staying. So she walked into Redfern's unlocked home. She had her small suitcase with her. And obviously, she found nobody in the hallway to greet her, obviously, because it wasn't a bed and breakfast. It was somebody's family home. And after finding nobody in the hallway, she went upstairs and she went to one of the bedrooms. I believe it was Redfern's bedroom. And she got into bed. Now, David Redfern and his partner, Nicola Leroyd Lewis, they had been watching television in another room at the time. They had both been drinking, so they had both been consuming alcohol throughout the day. Now, it's reported that Redfern had consumed about 6 or 7 pints, as well as a gin and tonic, so I guess he mixed a little bit. But, I mean, to be fair, he's in his own home and he can drink where he likes, right? Now, Redfern was actually renovating his 5-story property at the time, and he was actually converting it to a hotel or a B&B. So if he was in the middle of these renovations, then I guess it would kind of make sense that Margaret might just assume that it was a bed and breakfast. The other thing is, he was stressed out, he was anxious, he was kind of wound up, and I think this is one of the reasons he was possibly drinking as well, because he had a medical condition and it affected his driver's license. So I think he was undergoing quite a bit of stress at the time. I don't want to say any of this as a justification for what happens next, because there is no justification for what happens next, but it's just all factors that we can put onto kind of explain how things kind of spiral so badly. You know, he'd been drinking and he was under stress. And from what I can gather from the reports, he is known to have anger issues as well, which doesn't help. So at around about 10:45 p.m, Redfern and Nicola, they go upstairs to bed. Now they find their bedroom door locked from the inside. That's because Margaret is in there. They're confused. They go to get a spare key. And they were absolutely shocked to discover Margaret lying in their bed, partially undressed. She was drinking a gin and tonic. She was either smoking or had been smoking. She had her false teeth on the bedside table, and her suitcase lay open on the floor. Now, if you just put yourself into David Redfern and Nicola's shoes, I mean, there would be a variety of things that they would be thinking and feeling. They would be extremely confused as to why there is an elderly lady in their bed, obviously, but they don't know who she is and why she's there. They have no idea. They don't know whether there's a mental issue going on. They don't know whether she's alone. They don't know whether there's somebody else with her. She could be a ruse. They don't know whether she's concealing a weapon. They don't know anything. Basically, what I'm saying is, at this point, I think it's too early to judge what Redfern does, because he is confused and he doesn't know the situation. Now, according to Redfern, we need to realise this as well, that everything that we get is Redfern's account of what happened. According to him, he calmly asked Margaret what she was doing in his home. Now, Margaret, she is still disorientated and a little bit tipsy, and I don't think she's making much sense. And so at 10:52, Redfern calls the police, basically to have her removed. Now, according to Redfern, Margaret gets extremely agitated at this. She does not like the police being called. And he says that she begins to act aggressively and that she basically lunges at Nicola and accuses Nicola of stealing her handbag. And this whole thing, basically, according to Redfern, causes or sparks a confrontation. We have no idea whether Margaret actually was aggressive. I think the judge makes the assumption and says, let's assume that she was. Even if she was, it makes absolute sense that she was, because from her perspective, she thinks that she's in a B&B. From her perspective, she thinks strangers have broken into her room and she doesn't know who they are. And then obviously you've got to factor in the alcohol and whatnot as well. She's going to be very, very confused. And it kind of makes sense that she might act aggressively, because just like they don't know who she is, she doesn't know who they are. She doesn't know if they're going to rob her or anything. And that is what makes this whole thing just so extremely tragic, because it's literally a horrendous misunderstanding. And what happens next is an absolutely horrifying escalation. Basically, Redfern, now he's a large man. He's 6'1". He's about 22 stone. And he's basically 25 years Margaret's junior. So obviously he is way stronger than her, and she's absolutely no match for him. Plus, we've got this kind of volatile behaviour that he is known for. And what he does next, he kicks or stamps her. Apparently in a fit of rage, he kicks or stamps her. Now, his justification is that she is attacking Nicola. So for him, he is defending his girlfriend. But this one kick or one stamp was enough to give her extensive internal bleeding. He broke 3 of her ribs. He fractured her neck. She had a catastrophic injury to her liver. Basically, this injury to her liver was so bad that the pathologist described that injury as unsurvivable. Basically, the severity of the injuries that he caused her were compared to those seen in a high-speed car accident. That is how bad the injuries were. Now, after he attacked her, he didn't stop there. He took her ankles, dragged her, holding her ankles down the stairs. Whether this as well culminated in those internal injuries, being dragged down the stairs, that's going to do some damage, right? And then he basically tosses her suitcase out into the street. Margaret is lying absolutely battered at the bottom of the stairs. This poor lady, she has been absolutely battered. We're talking one kick or stamp. That's all it took. That's all it took. One kick or one stamp. And then being dragged down the stairs. She has all these extensive internal injuries. Now, just to make clear, because obviously you might be wondering where Nicola is, just to make clear that she is a complete contrast to David. She is very gentle with Margaret. She picks her up from the bottom of the stairs and helps to escort her outside of the house. And she basically tries to look after her. Now, Margaret, outside the house, she's desperately fumbling around trying to pick all her possessions up. Now, she's got all these injuries, and she's fumbling around on the ground because obviously David has chucked her suitcase outside. So she's trying to just pick all her possessions up. She's absolutely distraught. And this poor lady, because David Redfern, at this point, even though Margaret is outside the house, he shows her zero compassion. Basically, he sat there watching her as she was fumbling around trying to pick her possessions up. He sat there watching her. He didn't even help her. Now, neighbours came out because they heard this commotion going on. So between Nicola and some neighbours, they all tried to help Margaret, because by this point, Margaret is literally lying in the street dying. She's lying in the street dying. Redfern is still sat there, still sat watching. And basically, he is taunting Margaret. He is calling her names. He calls her a lying c***. He is laughing at her while he's also making offensive jokes, offensive comments. We're talking comments of a sexual nature. Who makes comments of a sexual nature to a 71-year-old woman, let alone a 71-year-old woman who is lying in the street dying after you have just battered her? She is lying on the ground, calling out for her husband, for her son, for her children. She is lying there, dying, calling out for the people she loves, confused. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't understand why this has happened. She has no idea she's in the wrong place. She has no idea. And all the while, the person who attacked her is sitting there taunting, laughing. Now, obviously, the neighbours tell him to call an ambulance. He refuses. He refuses to call an ambulance. In fact, because obviously the neighbour, they do call an ambulance. And so Redfern was recorded saying, I wouldn't have called an ambulance. I would have dragged her down to the beach. Any smidgen of understanding that we had for David Redfern about the fact that there was a stranger in his house and he has no idea who she is, it all goes out of the window because he refused to call an ambulance. He's still showing no... Margaret is helpless. What threat is this lady to him? She is zero threat. He must have realised by now that she is no threat. He would call an ambulance. He would be doing everything he could to help. He would be remorseful. He would be going, oh my God, this has gone too far. I'm so sorry. It didn't mean to get out of hand. I just didn't realise who you were and it's all a misunderstanding. He would be remorseful, but he wasn't. And refusing to call an ambulance is just the absolute, I mean, there's no humanity there, zero humanity. Now, sadly, there was also a firearms incident going on at the time nearby, and this meant that the police were unable to attend. And it also meant that Margaret was lying in the street for 2 hours because the ambulance was obviously busy elsewhere. Now, the ambulance instructed Nicola or the neighbours, whoever was helping Margaret, to perform CPR. But, you know, even with the neighbours performing CPR on Margaret, even by the time the ambulance did get there, it was just too late. It was too late. Now, Nicola, I mean, she was distraught. She was doing her best. She was captured on CCTV or on the... on audio somehow. She was captured anyway, just saying, please don't die, please don't die. You know, just, you imagine her position of witnessing your partner doing that to somebody. I can't even imagine what it must be like to see somebody that you love inflicting that pain on somebody else. It's just horrendous. But it was just too late. It was all just too late. At around about 2 a.m. on July the 11th, 2022, Margaret Barnes was declared dead. Now, just before she died, CCTV footage captured her saying, "I'm sorry." I really struggle with this one to wrap my head around why he thought it would be a good idea to continue. The interesting question with this case is, how far can you go? Now, I think even if he stamped and kicked her at the beginning, people would be understanding, not that that should have happened, but just understand that reaction of, oh my God, there's someone in the house, and you lash out. It's that instant reaction of lashing out at somebody. But dragging her down the stairs, laughing at her, taunting her, refusing to call an ambulance, all of that eradicates any sympathy we have for this man. It's all out of the window. This man is horrifically vile. This man is disgusting. He is the pits. You don't do that to anybody. His inability to control his rage was nothing to do with anybody else. Get a bloody punch bag. Now, obviously, he was arrested and he was charged with murder. So during his trial at Carnarvon Crown Court, the prosecution highlighted Redfern's history of anger issues, and they argued that his actions were excessive and disproportionate. I mean, damn right they were excessive and disproportionate. Completely disproportionate. They emphasised that his inability to control his rage led to this senseless act of violence. Yeah, yeah. I would add in a lack of respect, a lack of humanity. I would add in lots of things as well, but in a nutshell, yeah. Now, obviously, the defence claimed that he was acting in self-defence, and he denied the murder charge. He showed zero remorse, zero compassion, zero anything. Basically, he tried to blame Margaret for what had happened. He said it was all her fault. But basically, this guy is absolute scum of the earth, because by denying the murder charge in the process, he subjected Margaret's family to the trauma of a 2-week trial, where they had to listen to the details of what happened to Margaret, harrowing details of the attack, all because he couldn't be bothered to go, yeah, I did it. Absolute scum of the earth. But anyway, obviously there were emotional victim impact statements where the family kind of described this profound loss that they endured. You know, Margaret's daughter, Natalie Barnes, she told the court, "Every morning we wake up struggling to cope with the fact that we will never see her again. My dad and my brother can't come to terms with the fact that Mum called out for them as she was dying, but they were unable to help. It has literally destroyed our family." Imagine her husband, over 50 years they were together, and she is just ripped away from him. It's indescribable, the absolute pain and horror that this family would have felt. And for what reason? There was no reason for it. And obviously the judge agreed. He condemned Redfern's senseless act of violence and the devastating impact on Margaret's family, on the community, and ultimately on March the 29th, 2023, the jury found David Redfern guilty of murder, and the judge sentenced him to 14 years. 14 years. I'm really torn. I don't know whether that's enough or not. What is good, though, is that the judge does make clear that just because it's 14 years, it doesn't guarantee that he will be let out. He will have to apply to be let out.
It's important that you and everyone involved with this case should understand what this means. The minimum term is not a fixed term after which you'll be automatically released. It's the minimum time you'll spend in custody in full before your case can be considered by the parole board. It will be for them to say whether, and if so, on what conditions you're to be released.
So that is something good, I guess, from it. Because, yeah, it was just totally out of proportion to what Margaret did. If David Redfern hadn't continued to do what he did, it would have been a tragic accident. He might have still got some jail time or whatever, but it would have been viewed by people as more of a tragic accident, something that just went horribly wrong. Two people misunderstood a situation and something terrible happened. But as it was absolutely senseless.
I can understand why you might have escorted her out of your house, though a different person might have responded to the situation by trying to help her. But the assault, a kick or stamp of sufficient force to cause a fatal injury, was a dreadful thing to do to a defenceless elderly person.
I mean, the judge found that he intended to harm and not kill. And yeah, that kind of makes sense. Except for the fact that he didn't want to cause an ambulance. So the second that you don't cause an ambulance when somebody is dying on the street, that is when that changes from just wanting to cause harm to actually wanting to kill somebody. Because surely at that point, you know the consequences are that if this person does not get medical assistance pretty damn quickly, they could die. Then you are basically condemning that person to death. And I disagree with the judge there that I agree that initially he didn't intend to murder, because I don't think he initially did. But when you don't call an ambulance, then you're basically intending to murder. That's what I think anyway. And I don't know whether, I mean, this is just kind of off the cuff thinking here going on, but I don't know whether the fact that his girlfriend was there made a difference, because he strikes me as the kind of man that maybe he was kind of showing off a little bit. Look what I can do. It was about protecting his girlfriend. He was protecting her. But whether it kind of overstepped a little bit to that kind of macho bravado that comes up. But ultimately, he wasn't fighting another 40-odd-year-old who was also 20-odd stone and also 6 foot tall. He was taking or showing off, or whatever he was doing it against a 71-year-old frail lady. That's not macho, that's just absolute cowardice.
Was a dreadful thing to do to a defenceless elderly person.
And yeah, like a lot of my cases, I kind of go with the burn in hell at the end. And this one's no different, really. What he did was just worthy of burning in hell for, quite frankly. But it's interesting how I think the story would be very, very different if he had just called that ambulance. The actual murdering her, as horrendous as it is almost forgivable under the circumstances. Because I think most of us would agree that we've got a right to defend our homes, defend our property, defend our loved ones. And arguably, that's all he was doing. But we don't have a right to overstep that. And he overstepped. He made a massive overstep. This was bigger than an overstep. This was like, I don't know what's bigger than an overstep. What's bigger than an overstep? You know what I'm saying. But anyway, let me know what you think. You look after yourselves. You take good care of yourselves, take good care of your loved ones. Give your loved ones a hug. And I genuinely mean that, actually. Something happened to me recently where, how do I say this? I can't give one of the people I love more than anything in the world. More than anything in the world. I can't give that person a hug anymore. And once they're gone, they're gone. There is no going back from that. So if you can, give your loved ones a hug now. Give them a hug as if every day is their last day, because you never know when they will be taken from you. Margaret's family did not think for a second that she wouldn't be coming back from her holiday, a fun little breakaway with friends. They didn't think for 1 second that she wouldn't be coming back home to them. So cherish your loved ones as if every day is their last day. Sorry for the crappy note to end on. Sometimes we need reminding of these things, though, I think. If I could go back in time, I would, but I can't. And here I am reminding you. So there you go. So anyway, you take good care, and hopefully see you back here for another case at my True Criminal abode. Bye.